Hello and welcome to another amazing part of What If Garp Changed the Future? Professional Ranter wrote this amazing story. Please support them. Don't forget to like, sub, and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. Garp dreamed of the ocean, floating within it and seeing nothing but blue, a color of comfort and agony for him. He drifted aimlessly, not another sign of life could be seen. Suddenly he saw a bright light that pulled him to it. He could hear someone crying. Why did it sound familiar? I wish things could be different. A voice echoed out and suddenly he was drowning. Garp awoke to someone holding his nose closed. Springing from his bed he punched at them wildly but didn't manage to hit anything. Once the sleep wore off he looked around and was met with a man who didn't seem human when he looked close enough. Who are you? The thing smirked lightly. I'm a friend of your grandson if you will. Garp immediately pushed the man into the wall and held his forearm to their throat with his other raised and ready to attack. If you hurt Luffy I swear I will end you. Garp's voice was low and his eyes burned bright with rage. How else am I to describe what I am? The thing wasn't even struggling to breathe, for that matter it didn't even look like it was breathing. Explain. Garp didn't move a single muscle as he stared the thing down, because it wasn't human or any other race from this world that he knew of. I guess you could say I'm from the future. I'm the embodiment of a wish Luffy made, here to make it come true. Garp didn't believe him. He became the king of the pirates. He got an amazing crew and sailed the world. But the Marines hunted them down and made him watch as they were executed one by one. They took his smile. Garp wanted to deny that the Marines were that cruel, but he knew the truth. While he had surrounded himself with Marines who truly cared for a kind justice, he knew that ones like Akainu believed in absolute justice, a cruel justice. What do you mean they took his smile? Garp couldn't for the life of him see Luffy without a smile. His grandson was more lively than any beast and smiled brighter than the sun itself. It was impossible to imagine him not laughing and smiling, inconceivable. They killed his brothers before his eyes. Ace and Sabo. Garp's eyes widened at those names. His crew was his family and each of them was executed before his eyes and he couldn't do anything to save them. He was forced to be alone in the world. All of his allies were executed as well out of fear for them trying to stop the execution of the pirate king who saved them all. They took everything. The thing spoke softly, trying to explain to Garp that it was from the future. Garp shook, wishing that what the creature said wasn't true, but he knew the cruel Marines who believed in absolute justice would go that far. Then why are you here? The night before his execution he saw a shooting star and made a wish. For things to be different. So here I am, granting his wish for things to be different. Garp moved away from what was apparently a living star here to grant his grandson's future wish, and wasn't that confusing? Why me? Why had this wish-granting being come to him? Why choose him when Luffy apparently had multiple allies from the future? Why not any of them? You're his grandfather. Despite your loyalty to the Marines, you are far more loyal to your family and would do anything for them. I have a way for you to change things while ensuring Luffy will get the same crew as last time, maybe even more this time around. But I can't do that. I am only able to guide things along. I can't force anything to happen. The creature summoned a book into existence and tossed it to the Vice Admiral. You can, though. In that book are a series of events you have to change and people you need to kill, even 1 or 2 items you need to find. The events have dates and locations for when they happen. Follow them and your grandson will never lose his smile. Will become an amazing pirate who changes the world for the better. It stared at him, knowing his thoughts. You won't be able to do it as a Marine. Garp gripped the book with white knuckles as he took a deep breath. He knew the answer even without the creature telling him. And he couldn't care. His family was far more important to him than the Marines and he would sacrifice everything to keep them safe. Fine then. Thank you for helping me protect Luffy. The creature smiled. The ocean was practically screaming at me to do it. Your grandson is favored by many beings even now. I wish you luck, Monkey D. Garp. With a flash of light, the creature was gone and the book was still in his hands. Garp stared at it for a moment before opening to the first page. Stop Don Quixote Corazon Rocinante's death. North Blue Minion Island. Garp stared at the familiar name, a child he had helped Sengoku raise. He didn't know how it would help Luffy, but he couldn't question something from the future. He didn't know how to bring the wish back. Closing the book and taking a shuddering breath, Garp took his coat off and left it on his bed before walking out the door. The night watch didn't question his walking about, used to his irregular sleep habits. Walking to the docks he stared at his own ship but knew he couldn't take it. I can get a better one later. Climbing aboard a smaller ship that he knew he could handle by himself he got ready to set sail. Vice Admiral, where are you going? Looking behind him he was met with one of the night watch. The Marine didn't care, having seen Garp do all sorts of odd things in the past. He just needed to know in case Sengoku asked. Decided the stars were beautiful tonight, wanted to see them better. The man let out a sigh and walked away. People knew Garp would sometimes do strange things, and in comparison to everything else, this was tame. Getting the ship out, Garp stared at the sky before he prepared to set course. To protect his grandson's smile. Garp stared out at sea, checking his log pose as he worked his way to the calm belt, ready to go to the North Blue. Seeing his course hadn't changed, he took out the book and began to go through it, ready to plan out his new path. After the first page, he was met with the first one that directly involved Luffy. Send Monkey D. Luffy to Dayton. The date next to it seemed to be when it was appropriate to send him, and it had passed just yesterday when he set out on this journey. Damn it. This had been a call he had not been looking forward to. Getting up, Garp worked through his pockets before pulling out a Den Mushi. This was one that was connected to only 2 others and couldn't be overheard through any means. It had been a massive pain for him to find, but it was vital for him to communicate with Makino and Dayton without risk of being overheard. Ace and Luffy's safety depended on it. Choosing to call Makino first, he listened to it ring for a couple of moments before it was picked up. Hello. Makino's voice was a bit bleary. She had clearly just woken up. Makino. Garp? I was going to call you later. Something happened to Luffy. Garp's breath hitched. We had a visitor to the island, red-haired Shanks, and Luffy accidentally ate a devil fruit. He's a rubber man now. Garp couldn't help the chuckle he let out. Only Luffy could eat a devil fruit by accident. He could hear Makino laugh softly. Yeah, a small problem arose though when a mountain bandit kidnapped him. He got thrown into the ocean and was almost eaten by the king of the coast. Garp gripped the receiver hard, but Shanks saved him at the cost of his left arm. Garp stared ahead for a moment before sighing. Seems I owe that brat then. When Shanks left, Luffy declared that he would become king of the pirates. Garp wanted to be angry. He wanted to say that Luffy would become a Marine, but he couldn't, not when he had just quit being a Marine so he could protect Luffy's smile. Not surprising given what he saw a pirate do for him. He could tell Makino was surprised. Listen, Makino, with Luffy now being a devil fruit eater, there will be people who will want him for various things, all horrible. There's a tribe of mountain bandits led by a woman named Dayton. She can protect him until he's able to defend himself properly and has a good handle over his new powers. Whoop Slap should know the way to her home. Garp, are you okay? He should have expected a question like this. He wasn't acting like himself. Hell, he just accepted that Luffy wanted to become a pirate without any apparent struggle. Some things have changed, Makino. I won't be able to visit for a bit. I'll try and call though. I'd recommend you get yourself a gun though, just to be safe. Garp, what's happened? He was clearly scaring her. I can't explain it all right now. Garp felt some tears fall, knowing that now there was no turning back. I'll try to explain it later, but right now I can't. Please just do what I've said and stay safe. Tell Luffy. Garp took a deep breath. Tell him that I love him. Before Makino could respond, Garp hung up and quickly dialed Dayton. Within moments she answered. What? Dayton. She yelped slightly. Garp? What do you want? My grandson Luffy is coming to stay with you for a while. Don't ask questions, please, just accept him. He hates being alone and wants nothing more than to be happy with the people he cares about. Garp, what the hell is going on? I quit the Marines. He said the words out loud for the first time since leaving Marine HQ. Dayton could be heard falling over in shock, not quite believing what she heard. Why? I overheard some of them talking about the possibility of Roger or the Revolutionary Dragon having children. They said they would kill them to stop the bloodline. It was the breaking point for me, Dayton. They'd kill children just because of who their parents were. Not a lie, he had heard several Marines talk as such. He couldn't exactly tell Dayton he had learned of ways to change the future in order to protect his grandson. And he has been on the precipice of leaving for years now, ever since Rouge died asking him to protect Ace. Your son is Dragon, isn't he? Yes. I don't blame you. I'm guessing you're gonna go to one of the other blues before coming here? Try and not leave a trail? Yes. Can you tell Ace? Tell Ace that when I see him again I have stories about his father and mother he needs to hear, not the propaganda that the Marines spout. And that I love him. Thank you, Dayton, for protecting Ace and taking in Luffy. Thank you. Garp hung up. He stopped holding back his tears and let them flow. Wishing things didn't have to be this way, but knowing that they had to be. With Sengoku. Garp, will you get off your ass and help me with this paperwork? Sengoku barged into Garp's room only to see he wasn't there. All he saw was his jacket on his bed. Garp? Looking around he couldn't find any sign of him. Damn it, where did he fall asleep now? Leaving the room, Sengoku marched to the night watch quarters. Barging in, he woke them up with the door slamming. "Have any of you seen Garp?" One of them got up from their bed and yawned. "Vice Admiral Garp got on a ship last night, sir. He said he wanted to get a better view of the stars or something." Sengoku let out a sigh. He must have fallen asleep. "Thank you, you can go back to sleep." Leaving the quarters, Sengoku returned to his office and pounded his forehead against his desk. "He'll turn up later. I am going to give him hell for pulling this." Ignoring the biting cold, Garp guided the ship to land at the shore of Minion Island. He could see a few pirate and marine ships when he was pulling up and knew he needed to move. Jumping from the ship with the book tucked away in a bag he'd found, he set off. "Haven't seen the brat in a couple years, hope I can still recognize him." He didn't know why rescuing Rosinante from his death would help Luffy, but it didn't matter to him. He would do anything that had even the slightest possibility of helping his family and make sure it would. Trudging through the snow, he listened for fights but didn't hear anything. Garp focused his observation haki, something he wasn't all that adept with, and looked for anything that could point him towards his goal. Sensing two people nearby, one of them lying in the snow and the other a child, he started walking that way. "It'll help to get some connections here. Someone must have gotten injured with Marines and pirates on this island. Maybe they can point me to Rosie. Who am I kidding? I've never been that lucky." He could faintly hear some talking as he got closer. "Hello? Is anyone there? I'm sorry, my ship landed here due to a storm and I was hoping you could point me to the nearest town." What most people didn't know is that Garp knew how to lie. He'd learned to when growing up on the streets, and he refined it to a point. "Please help. My dad. He needs help." A young voice cried out and Garp started running. He could never turn his back on a child or anyone in trouble, hence why the Marines had to make sure he never knew of a buster call until after it happened, or else he would stop it in a heartbeat. "I'm coming. Keep yelling. We're over here. The log pile. Please." Garp started working his observation haki to the max. While it wasn't much, and he swore to himself to improve it later, it helped him find their location. Coming out of the woods, he was met with a small child with spots and a giant of a man in the snow. "What's wrong with him?" The child looked up at him in fear as Garp walked closer. Kneeling next to the man, he turned him over and his eyes widened, recognizing Rosinante. "So my luck can be good for me at times." Looking at the kid, Garp knew what he had to do. "Come on, we'll get to my ship, then we'll get off this island. I know a place you can go to, you'll be safe." Leaning forward, Garp picked up Corazon and threw him over his shoulder and began to backpedal with the child following close behind. "Stay close. Is there anything I should know to keep you guys away from?" The child didn't want to say anything but knew that at that very moment, Garp was the best way to keep his father alive. "We both ate devil fruits." "Good. I thought he had last time I saw him, but I couldn't remember." "Why, you know Corazon?" The child stopped walking. Garp turned to look at him and saw him trembling in fear. "I'm a friend from his Marine days. I taught him a few things when I could." Garp's words did little to sway the boy's mind. "My name is Garp. What's yours?" "Law." "Okay, Law, listen, I quit the Marines a few days ago. I know an island where the people won't ask questions and will protect you. But I need you to trust me until we get there, and after that, you never have to see me again. My priority is to make sure your dad lives, but to do that I need you to trust me. Please." He knew he wasn't the best when talking to children, just look at how he raised his son and grandsons, but this kid seemed to act far older than he was, like he had already accepted his death. That tore at him. Garp sensed something with his haki and quickly dropped Rosinante while whipping around and bringing his fists up. Coating one of them in haki, he stopped a bullet meant for the giant of a man's head. Looking up, he was met with the head of G5 Virgo. What the hell is Garp the Fist doing here? Shit, so Daffy is here then. Rosinante had awoken. Rosinante, is this man being bribed by a pirate? Rosinante looked up and saw a man he hadn't seen outside of newspapers in years. Garp? Rosinante, is this Marine being bribed by a pirate? Garp hated many things in this world. Celestial dragons were at the top, turncoats and traitors shared the second, and Marines taking bribes took the third. He's part of the family. He was Corazon before me. I told you not to run ahead of me, kid, Virgo told Law, keeping his aim steady on Garp. Just walk away, Vice Admiral, this has nothing to do with you. It's a matter between family. Virgo was calm, confident. Everything that Garp could read off of him said he was powerful and dangerous, if he was against someone else. Garp didn't waste a second and leaped forward, delivering a punch to his stomach. Virgo dropped his gun and Garp brought his free arm up and brought his elbow down on his back. The turncoat fell to the ground and then Garp delivered a swift kick to the back of his head, knocking the undercover pirate out cold. And now Garp was faced with a choice. Normally Garp would arrest him and that would be it. But he wasn't a Marine anymore. He sure as shit wasn't a pirate either. He didn't know what he was. What he did know is that this man needed to die if Rosinante was to live. But could he let go of his morals from his time as a Marine to do so? Picking up the gun, he checked to make sure it was loaded and then shot Virgo in the head as he started to get up. If it had been a good Marine, he would have cared. But the man had been a traitor. And he had no intentions of messing up any of his objectives from the book. Dropping the gun, Garp walked back over to Rosinante and picked him back up. Come on, we're gonna have a long trip ahead of us. He once again started walking back to the ship, and Law was far more willing to follow him after that display. Garp? What are you doing here? Things changed, Rosie. I'm taking you two to a place I know you'll be safe in. He got to the ship and bending down he picked up Law. Jumping aboard, he dropped them both on the deck before returning to shore and beginning to push the boat off. Things won't always be this easy going forward. Can't get cocky. As he returned to the deck of the ship and began guiding it out to sea, he wondered what he would have to do next. The currents guided the ship out of the way of the Marines and pirates, and it disappeared from view of any enemies, leaving behind the corpse of Virgo, to be discovered by both the Marines and the Don Quixote pirates. Sailing through the calm belt again, Garp got to work on Rosinante. How many times were you shot? He looked at Garp for a moment before looking at Law. A look passed over his eyes, one Garp recognized of a father worried for their child. 3 times. Garp refrained from swearing and got to work looking over the wounds. 2 of them had gone straight through while the 3rd was lodged in. Law, go into the infirmary and get some tweezers or something. I gotta get this bullet out of him. Grab some bandages while you're there. Law ran off, leaving the 2 alone. What was that, Garp? Rosinante asked the moment he was sure Law wouldn't hear him. Don't know what you mean. You didn't even try to arrest Virgo. Hell, you didn't try to arrest me or Law. Rosinante wasn't upset or angry, but he needed to know what was going on in order to protect Law. Garp raised his eyebrow. Why would I arrest you too? I stole the ope fruit, Rosinante admitted without hesitation. Garp stalled as he looked at Rosinante. He then looked to where Law had gone and quickly connected the dots. He's sick with something and you got it to save him. Garp chuckled. You really have become a father, going against the world to save your child. You didn't know? Now Rosinante was getting really confused. I wasn't in the North Blue by chance. I quit the Marines, kid. Rosinante gaped at Garp. The hero of the Marines just up and quit. Why? The only question he could really voice. A lot of reasons. I was just given one that finally broke me. I'm actually a grandfather, you know. Really? Rosinante tilted his head. When Garp had helped Sengoku raise him, he never really struck him as a father. Yeah, Garp couldn't help the smile that grew on his face. Ace and Sabo aren't related to me by blood, but I love them all the same. Luffy is a monkey through and through. My son is the revolutionary dragon. Rosinante gasped and Garp chuckled at his reaction. Yeah, even when I was working for the Marines I was always so proud of him. The island we are going to is where my grandsons live. I knew the Marines would want them dead if they knew of Ace and Luffy's parentage. Law came up with what Garp requested. Taking hold of the tweezers, Garp steadied Rosinante and got to work getting the bullet out. Who is, he grunted slightly, Ace's parents? Jewel D. Roger and Portgas D. Rouge. Rosinante gasped from both the pain as Garp wrenched the bullet out and in surprise. Does he know? He does. Loves his mother but hates his father because of the Marine propaganda. I plan to tell him the true story when we get to the island. We will however need to stop by an island to resupply once we cross over into the East Blue. Garp started bandaging the wounds with Law watching with rapt attention. There should be some medical books on board if you want to read them, kid. Law startled. What? You have the fruit considered to be able to cure anything, and with how you're watching me you seem to have some interest in medicine. Besides, if you want to get whatever illness you have out, you'll need to understand how your body should normally operate. Finishing up with bandaging Rosinante, Garp got up and headed for below deck. Come on, I'll help you get them. 2 days later. Rosinante was walking along the deck as Garp steered the ship through the calm belt. Why aren't there any cannonballs on board? Safety precaution for docked ships. Enough ships got damaged during storms due to ammo, so a new rule was put in place. Everything else is kept stocked up with food, checked on every week to make sure it's still good. The incidents had mostly been at Marine outposts, but Sengoku had deemed it an important safety rule and had done it put in place for the entire Marines. Law came out on deck, already starting to look better thanks to the ope fruit and being able to have full meals. When Garp had learned he was a survivor of Flevens, he had to refrain from letting out a string of curses for how the world government handled the situation. Where will we be going for supplies? Logue Town and Shells Town are already off the table due to the marine presence there. There's a small island nearby with a single village which should have everything we need. Garp began to change course as they exited the calm belt and started heading towards the island, and a place where I can change something else. He could remember the words in the book. Save Kuina from her death. East Blue Shimatsuki Village. It's called Shimatsuki Village. It's small enough to not have a marine or pirate presence but big enough to have the necessary supplies to finish the journey. In a few short hours they arrived. Garp landed the ship out of the view of civilians and jumped off the ship. Stay on board, both of you are still recovering so you need your rest. With that order, Garp set out for the village. The walk helped to soothe his nerves. The nature around him actually reminded him of Goa somewhat. In his childhood, it had been controlled by pirates and the marine station there took bribes from them, so the problem was never solved. Garp had decided to become a marine and try to change things for Goa, and eventually, the world. But the system he so desperately tried to fix was so broken he couldn't do anything from the inside, and it took a being from the stars granting a wish Luffy makes in the future to open his eyes. He curses himself for his naivety but knows he can't change the past. But he has been given a way to change the future. Entering the village, Garp set out for the mountain of stairs he saw in the distance, wanting to see the view before he got to work. Walking along he could see various young men with practice swords and sometimes real swords at their hips. Some were practicing the basic sets while others were going into more complex ones. It reminded him of Bogard, the man loyal to Garp, not the Marines for saving his little sister. He missed him but he couldn't waste any time when he got the book, he had to save Rosinante. Finally, at the mountain of stairs, Garp looked up only for his eyes to widen upon seeing a young girl falling. Without even thinking he rushed forward and jumped into the air before grabbing her. He landed on the ground and rolled slightly. He kept her close to his person and shielded her with his body before they came to a stop. Kuina. He could hear someone yell. Garp looked down and saw her shaking but also the sword she held. Hey, why were you shaking? You're a swordswoman, don't show fear from some little fall. He got up and helped her steady herself on her feet. Finally, did it register to him the name that had been yelled? Ha, thought that would take longer. Kuina finally stopped shaking and looked up. When you take up a weapon you are putting both yourself and others in danger. To show fear is to hesitate and people can die if you do that. I'm not saying you should rush into things but don't let your fear control you. She looked at him with wide eyes as what was clearly her father stopped before them. Thank you, sir. She surely wouldn't have survived the fall. He panted slightly as he bowed to Garp in thanks. It's all right. I wanted to see the view before getting to work on supplies and was in the right place at the right time. Garp waved the man's thanks away, he just did what was right. Still though, how can I repay you? Garp thought for a moment. He had the money needed to get the supplies for the final leg of the journey, so his mind turned to his two new allies. Rosinante had his guns and knives, but Law didn't have any way to defend himself aside from his devil fruit which he has only just started learning how to use. A sword would be enough for me. A friend of mine needs one. Of course, let me show you what we have and you can have any one of them. The man quickly headed for the dojo and Garp followed. Kuina stayed behind, still thinking about what Garp said. Entering the dojo, Garp was guided toward a room full of swords. He looked over each of them before his eyes landed on a sword that almost made him laugh for how it matched Law's hat. Picking it up he felt he made the right choice. Kikoku, an excellent choice. Again, thank you so much, sir. My daughter means everything to me and I don't know what I would have done if I lost her. Think nothing of it. I need to go buy the supplies now. Garp waved to the man and quickly bought the supplies. Lugging them and the sword back to the ship, he couldn't help the small smile on his face. He had already changed the future twice now. He didn't know how big the changes were but they were a start. Throwing the supplies on deck, Garp pushed the ship out to sea and then jumped on board himself. Law, got something for you. The kid looked up and Garp handed him the sword. It may be a bit big for you now but you'll grow into it. Besides, now you have something to defend yourself with. Rosinante wanted to scream that Garp shouldn't give children swords but he knew that the man didn't know the meaning of the words safety or sane. Sengoku marched through the halls, pissed off and wanting to wring Garp's neck. Disappear for months, huh? Abandon your work and post to go stare at the stars, will you? When you get back here, Garp, I swear to everything I am gonna murder you. Suffice it to say, Sengoku wasn't pleased with Garp's disappearance. With no word of him causing chaos wherever he goes or pirates suddenly turning themselves in, because they want to get away from him, Garp has completely disappeared. Last time he did this, an entire fleet of pirate ships sunk to the ocean floor along with several corrupt marines found in jail. Where the hell are you, Garp? He wouldn't admit it out loud, but Sengoku was worried for his friend. Even when Garp would disappear, there was usually a note or letter he left behind for them, but this time there was nothing. It had both him and Tsuru holding their breath, waiting for Garp's explosive return. With Garp. So how long has it been since you were last at Fusha? Razanandi asked. Garp sighed, remembering the beauty of his home. Too long. I called there the day after I quit so that Luffy would be in a safer place. He let out a sharp laugh, only to learn that he accidentally ate a devil fruit. Garp started laughing loudly and the two others quickly joined in. It was some months ago. Took me a while to get to Minion Island, and with the Grand Line weather, plus sailing through the calm belt, I'd say about 10 months. A large part of that had been avoiding marine ships. He wished he could get gifts to give to the boys before leaving for who knows how long, but he didn't have the time. There were things he had to do, and he had to find the time to fully read through the book. Do you plan to get a crew? Law asked, looking at Garp with his head tilted. He didn't know how to respond. He hadn't even thought of getting a crew. Having a crew would be helpful, but he'd also have to ensure their safety, and he'd have to budget then so everyone got what they needed. He would also have to tell them about the wish and the knowledge he had of future events, but they could also provide their own ideas about how to change things. The pros outweighed the cons, though, in the fact it would allow him to get more things done. More people allowed him to be able to sail far smoother because despite what he's been able to do, he's no navigator. That could cut down on time at sea. I'm considering it. Marine ship. Razanandi pointed at one near the coast of the Goa Kingdom. He went to grab Law as Garp stared at it before his eyes widened. A celestial dragon? You two get below deck and don't come up. The two quickly flew out of sight and Garp kept his eye on the enemy ship. However, as he looked closer he could see a small poorly made ship sailing too close. The flag it flew chilled him to the bone. A Jolly Roger with the letters ASL behind the skull and crossbones. And he could faintly see a small figure on board. One Garp knew all too well. Not even stopping to think, Garp made sure the ship would beach itself on the shore and then jumped overboard. He swam towards the ship as he saw the cannons being prepared. Pushing his muscles he got closer to see Sabo panicking. He didn't even notice the king of the coast in the distance, he was so focused on saving his family. Getting as close as he could he climbed aboard and without even letting his grandson say anything he threw him onto his ship. He then jumped onto the celestial dragon ship and stood up, dripping wet and brimming with rage. They were going to shoot his grandson down. They were going to kill him. Vice Admiral Garp? One of the Marines yelped. Garp could see the false dragon reclining on a chair in the back. What are you doing here? This is my home island. Why are you here? Garp held in his rage. They still thought of him as a Marine, and if he acted out now he could jeopardize his mission. A god does not tell a foolish mortal why he does things. Kill him now. The celestial dragon said, flicking his hand casually as though he hadn't just tried to murder a child. But St. Jalmac, he's the hero of the Marines. I don't care, he dared to interrupt my entertainment. Those were the wrong words to say. Garp's fists clenched so tightly he'd be surprised if he didn't pierce his skin as his rage washed over him. Walking forward it was clear to the Marines there that something was wrong. Some stepped forward and tried to stop him, saying something that he completely ignored. The only thing he saw was the dead man in the stupid suit who dared to try and hurt his grandson. Grabbing the heads of both Marines he slammed them into the deck, cracking it and sending wood pieces flying. He continued walking forward. More Marines tried to stop him but he knocked them aside. They were meaningless, not his target. The celestial dragon began to grow fearful and raised his gun. The bullet fired did nothing, stopped by his armament hockey. St. Jalmac quivered as he saw the force of nature walk towards him. An aura of rage engulfed Garp, the Marines quivering in fear at the unfamiliar sight. Knocking Marines aside until he was standing in front of the false dragon, Garp stared down at him with gritted teeth. Not even stopping to think, he shattered the glass dome over the bastard's head and slammed him into the deck. Lifting him up he could see some teeth come loose, but that wasn't what he wanted. He wanted him dead. Slamming back into the deck, over and over, the ship began to come apart due to the force he was putting into slamming St. Jalmac into the ship. He could faintly hear his ship beaching itself while the Marines jumped overboard only to be feasted upon by the king of the coast. With a roar of pure rage, he slammed the corpse into the ship one more time and his head exploded. As he took several deep breaths, Garp looked down and realized what he just did. He just killed a celestial dragon. Sabo. Forgetting what he had just done immediately, Garp jumped off the ship and immediately started making his way for land. Behind him, the king of the coast feasted, the creature ignoring the man who fed it. Getting to the beach, Garp looked around. "Sabo?" he yelled out, looking for his grandson. "Grandpa." That was Luffy. Turning around, he saw his ship in the distance and ran towards it. He saw Luffy and Ace hugging Sabo tightly. He slid on the sand and pulled all three into a hug as he panted. "You're safe. You're safe." He said that more to reassure himself than them. Dayton could be heard running over while Rosinante and Law came out on the deck and looked over the side. Pulling Sabo close, he looked him over and thanked everything that he could that he wasn't injured, despite his singed clothes. "Old man? What are you doing here?" Sabo looked up at him, voicing the thoughts of his brothers. Garp chuckled lightly. "I told you to call me Grandpa. Ace calls you his brother and that makes you my grandson." He looked down at his grandson and smiled. "Ace and Sabo are my brothers now too." Looking at Luffy, Garp saw his wide happy smile, the one he swore to protect, and let out a loud booming laugh. "Really? That's wonderful to hear." It truly was. Three of the most important people in his life considered each other family. But Garp quickly grew serious. "Sabo, why were you leaving the island?" His stupid old man was trying to force him to marry somebody. He kidnapped Sabo and burned the gray terminal to the ground. Ace screamed, getting angry at the reminder. "What?" Garp's voice was low. Sabo began to tear up. I was born a noble. I'm sore dash. I don't care where you were born, Sabo, you are my grandson. But it seems I won't be able to stay as I had planned." Garp stood up and helped Rosinante and Law get down. Dayton came to a stop and stared at Garp. "Dayton, these are Rosinante and Law. Take care of them." She clearly wanted to argue but couldn't bring herself to, not with the dark look in his eyes. "Why can't you stay?" Luffy stared up at his grandfather. "Because I have to murder a noble who tried to hurt my grandson. Boys, I've quit the Marines." They gasped in surprise. "I'll explain it another time, but I want you to know I love you three so much." He held back his tears, not knowing when he would be able to see them again. "You three have been the best thing to ever happen to me. When you set out to sea, hold your heads high and smile because you are free to do whatever you want." He brought them in for one more hug, not knowing when he would be able to do it again. "Dayton, strip the ship of supplies, then push it out to sea. And take care of them." He's called out. "Look." Luffy yelled to him as he walked away. "Make him pay for making Sabo cry." "I will. And I expect to see you becoming a great pirate at 17, you hear me?" Luffy laughed and Garp smiled, happy to know he made his grandson happy. Walking to the home of the nobles, Garp kept his rage in check, knowing soon he would have enough Marines and guards on him to make a sane man quake in fear. He didn't have such sanity. Entering the square, Garp looked around, some people giving him weird looks due to the mostly washed-away blood on his torn suit. Walking up to one of them, Garp looked at them. "Excuse me, do you know where I can find a noble named Outlook? Can I help you?" Looking behind him, he saw a man with a top hat staring at him. "Oh good, you were waiting here for that saint." Garp grinned dangerously. "You know where Saint Jalmac is? He's dead, I killed him. Just like I'm going to kill you." Before Outlook could say anything or even properly react to what he had just been told, Garp snapped his neck. It rang through the silent town square as everyone looked on in surprise. Then the screams started. Garp stared down at the corpse before scoffing and walking off to where the marine ships would be kept. "Vice Admiral Garp, you will stand down." Before the gates were a bunch of Marines with their guns pointed at him, ready to fire. "I'm not a Vice Admiral anymore. I quit 10 months ago, but you can consider this my more official resignation." The captain of the assembled Marines brought his hand down and they opened fire. Activating his armament hockey, the bullets fell to the ground. He could feel the book tucked away in his back pocket, humming with the potential for him to protect his family. Once the Marines fired all their loaded ammunition, they stared in horror at Garp, completely unharmed. "Step aside and let me through and you won't get hurt. Don't and you'll have a long stay in the hospital." The Marines quickly listened to him and opened the gates before fleeing. Garp got onto one of the boats and took it out of port. Staring back at the Goa Kingdom, he lightly scoffed. Fusha Village was always better company. As it became a speck behind him, Garp pulled out the book. Surprisingly, it wasn't wet, but what would he know? This thing was created by a wish-granting being. Of course it wouldn't be a normal book. Opening it to the first page, he was met with a new sight. Where it had been telling him to save Rosinante, it instead showed an image of him carrying Rosinante over his shoulder with Law walking right behind him. In the background was Virgo's body. Looking to the other pages, he saw similar images, each showing the moment he truly completed them. He smiled. At least this way he would always be able to look upon the smiling faces of Ace, Sabo, and Luffy as they declared themselves brothers. that truly made all this effort worth it. A day later with Sengoku, Fleet Admiral. A Marine ran up to Sengoku who was talking with Akiji. What is it? He was slightly annoyed. He had hoped Akiji might know where Garp was, but no such luck. It was long past time for some sign of him, but no one had seen anything. Monkey D. Garp killed a celestial dragon. Everyone in the hallway stopped in their tracks and stared at the Marine. He was holding his legs and panting heavily as he held up a file for the Fleet Admiral. Looking through it, Sengoku's eyes became wider as he read more. I will call a meeting in 2 days, Akiji. We will figure out what Garp's starting bounty shall be then. Walking away, Sengoku tried to stop himself from shaking, although if it was from anger or fear he didn't yet know. Garp's explosive entrance had come at last. Sengoku. Sengoku sat in his office, dreading the coming meeting. What the hell are you thinking, Garp? He probably wasn't as far as Sengoku was concerned. Killing a celestial dragon promised a massive increase in bounties. For someone's first bounty, if they killed a saint, it would be promised to be at least 1 billion. Throw in all of the information Garp knew, his numerous past achievements, the number of pirates he's defeated, and the fleets he's sunk, and Sengoku knew his bounty would go well over Roger's final bounty. And isn't that terrifying? A man's first bounty is higher than the Pirate King's last bounty. Something Sengoku knew that no one else did is that if Garp wanted to, he could have easily become Fleet Admiral. Hell, he had wanted to once upon a time before he learned he would have to answer directly to the 5 elders and celestial dragons. Now that same man had quit the Marines in such a loud manner the government couldn't try to hide it from the people. The papers had already been written. All he and the Marines could do was try and lessen the impact. Whitebeard. Hey Pops. Edward looked at Thatch as his son was reading the paper. Do you know a Monkey D. Garp? Raising his eyebrow, Edward rumbled out a laugh. I do. How many ships did he sink this time? He started to drink from his sake bottle despite his daughters asking him not to. He killed a celestial dragon. And the sake went into the air as the great Whitebeard spit it out. He started coughing and everyone else looked at him. He did what? Rayleigh? Rayleigh didn't know what he was looking at. Hero of the Marines, Monkey D. Garp kills St. Jalmac. Yes, see, that didn't make sense. Garp was more loyal to the Marines than a dog was to its owner. So for him to kill what is essentially his boss. Unthinkable. And yet, here it was on the newspaper, plain as day. He killed a celestial dragon and fed the corpse to a sea king. What the fuck? Kaido. Kaido raised his brow as his subordinate told him everything. He remembered seeing Garp fighting during the God Valley incident and had wished to fight him even but wasn't able to due to his other opponents. Perhaps I can finally face him. In the shadows, Yamato listened. Garp? Kazuki Oden mentioned him a few times in his journal. Maybe he can free Wano. Shank? I'm sorry, what the fuck? Shanks looked at his crewmate in surprise. Did you just say Garp killed a celestial? Ben nodded his head. Yup. A single survivor of his attack said he slammed his head into the deck of the ship so many times it exploded. He then left the body to be devoured by a sea king. Shanks stared for a moment before he let out a laugh. So he finally snapped. I always wondered what would push him over the edge, gotta ask him whenever we see each other. Boa Hancock. Sister, why do you look at that man? Sander Sonia asked. He's the hero of the Marines. I may be asked to face him someday. Hancock responded as she finished reading the report she and the other warlords had been sent. While a meeting hadn't been called, she knew one would eventually. And she would not be caught lacking information. Garp looked through storage and was pleasantly surprised to find ammunition. The ship most likely was meant to set out within the next day or two. Better for him. Going back out on deck, Garp looked over his map, searching for an island to dock at that wouldn't have a marine presence. Syrup Village looks promising. If I remember correctly, there is someone there who builds ships. Looking at the ship before him, Garp hated seeing the marine colors. He'd ripped the flag off last night and let it fly off into the wind. Some new sails and a layer of paint should be enough. Hopefully they'll be willing to do it. He quickly adjusted his course for the village. Sitting down, he brought out the Den Mushi and dialed Dayton. It rang for a few moments before she picked up. Garp? Dayton, how are things going back on the island? The nobles and marines have gone crazy after what you pulled. We're safe though. That's good. How are the boys? Sabo cried once he learned you actually killed his sperm donor. You really put a smile on his face. Luffy and Ace have been wanting to ask you why you quit the Marines. The 2 you left behind have been good company. The law kid asked us for some medical books and we're trying to get what we can. Rosinante on the other hand has been helping us with heavy lifting and hunting. But he's so fucking clumsy. He somehow set himself on fire earlier. Despite Dayton trying to remain impartial, Garp could tell she had already grown attached to the two. Sorry, I should have warned you about that, but I was pressed for time. Dayton, the lady who brought Luffy to you, Makino, may need your protection at some point if the Marines learn of Luffy's existence. Yeah, we'll take her in. She's already let us party at her bar and lets us pay her with food, so the rest have already grown attached. That was Dayton's speak, for she had grown attached. Can I speak to Ace? This was a talk that both he and Ace needed to have, and it was long overdue. Garp could hear her yelling on the other side before then hearing someone running over. Gramps? Hi, Ace. Garp had promised to tell Ace the truth about his father, and he was a man of his word. I promised to tell you the true story about your father. Are you ready to hear it? He could hear Ace trembling. Why, yes. All right, settle in, this is gonna be a long one. Sengoku. Sitting down with the Admiral, Sengoku prepared for a long and painful meeting. We are here to discuss how large Monkey D. Garp's starting bounty should be. Everyone murmured amongst themselves. What will be the starting point? Kizaru got them started properly on the conversation, a surprise given his usual attitude, but it showed just how serious the situation was. For the murder of St. Jalmac, 1 billion belly. However, we will need to factor in everything else he's done in his long career as a Marine, as well as the information that he knows. How many secrets does he know? A division commander asked. Enough to raise the bounty to 5 billion belly. Despite Garp's rank, the Marines had treated him like an admiral. Sometimes even fleet admiral. Sengoku had never tried to stop this behavior, seeing it as an advantage that lessened his workload and had Garp solving issues all over the 7 seas. With the number of pirates he's defeated and the ships resting at the bottom of the sea because of him, that would raise the bounty to 7 billion, Akiji stated, clearly wanting this to be over just as much as Sengoku. As the rest began to chip in for what increases needed to be made, Sengoku had to wonder yet again, why did Garp do this? With Garp. And that is how your father met your mother, because of the Ace of Spades. Garp finished telling the story. He could hear Ace sniffling. So I deserve to live? You always have, Ace, you always have. And his grandson broke down sobbing. He always knew Ace struggled with knowing who his father was. If what he said now helped him feel better, then so be it. His grandson deserved to live, and Garp would tell as many stories about Roger and his stupid kind heart as he had to, just so Ace knew he deserved to live. I have to go now, I promise to call as soon as I can. I love you, Ace. I love you, Gramps. Garp's heart swelled hearing those words as he hung up. Looking at the horizon, he could see Syrup Village in the distance. Beaching himself on the shore, Garp hopped off with the belly stored in the ship vault for emergency funds. Walking into the quaint town, Garp smiled before he saw a young man sitting under a tree crying. Walking over, he could hear him mutter something. Where are you, Dad? Excuse me? Are you okay? The young man was startled and looked up at Garp. Sorry? I'm fine. You're clearly not. Maybe I can help? The young man, and wow was his nose long, looked up at him. My mom's sick. Dad left with his crew for the Grand Line, and I don't have the money to send a letter to him. Well, do the doctors know what's wrong with her? The kid shook his head. Then maybe she has a sickness from one of the other blues. I have some books back on my ship that they could go through. They may be able to identify it. The kid's eyes grew hopeful. He immediately got up and started to pull Garp back towards the nearest shore where he had come from. When they got there, Garp jumped back up and grabbed the medical books before returning to the child. Are you a Marine? I was. Not anymore though. I actually came here to get the ship painted and some new sails. Oh, Kaya's family can help. The kid got excited as he led Garp to his house where they could see a man coming out. Usopp, who is that? I'm Garp. Usopp here was telling me you couldn't identify his mother's sickness. I brought some books about illnesses from the other blues and even the Grand Line. There should be something here that can help. The doctor was surprised before promptly taking the books and going to read them. Why don't you go see your mother, Usopp? I'll go figure out how much I need to pay for the paint job and sails. Garp waved to the kid and walked towards the mansion. He'd stored away the marine sail for emergency use before leaving the ship initially and was hoping they wouldn't ask too many questions. Walking towards the mansion in the distance, Garp thought back to the book. He hadn't had the time to fully read it yet since he was focused on manning the entire ship. He was starting to realize he truly did need a crew, but who would sail with him? No pirate would, given his history of hunting them down. Marines definitely wouldn't. Until he found someone he would have to be comfortable with simply sailing alone. Standing before the gate, Garp looked at the two guards. Excuse me, I was hoping to get my ship painted and some new sails. Is the master of the house available? Do you have an appointment? Sorry, no. I have the money, that won't be an issue. I'm sorry, sir, but if you don't have an appointment then you won't be able to see him. Garp sighed, not surprised. As he turned to walk away he saw the doctor from before running towards him. Sir, is something wrong? You were right. Banshina's sickness is from the South Blue. And we have what we need to cure her right here. Thank you so much, sir. How can we ever repay you? Garp let out a laugh, happy he could help. Just make sure that boy is able to keep his mother. If you'd like, I wouldn't mind looking after him while you treat her. I just need to set up an appointment with the master of the house here. Of course, sir. Again, thank you so much. I'll go gather the ingredients. Garp turned back around to look at the guards. Where can I set up an appointment? I can help with that, sir. From the house came a butler whose hair reminded Garp of a sheep. My name is Mary. The master will be available in 2 weeks. Garp cursed in his head. I don't have that kind of time right now. I figured this might happen. Could I buy some paint and sails from you then? I'll get the work done myself. Of course. I'll be here when you come back with the money to buy them. Thank you. Garp walked off. It was going to be more expensive to buy all those supplies himself since he would need to get the tools as well. Marine ships unfortunately didn't carry paint or such tools. But first Garp had a child to look after. Finding Usopp waiting for him near his house, Garp waved to the child who grinned at him. Usopp ran up to Garp and hugged him tight. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Garp chuckled and patted him on the head. Think nothing of it. Come on, what do you want to do while the doc treats your mother? Usopp pulled him to a makeshift target range and pulled out a slingshot. He showed him some trick shots, and while he wasn't the best he was still very impressive. I'm gonna be a sniper just like my dad. Really? It's good to have dreams. And using a slingshot is creative since it won't create any noise and you can have variety in the type of ammo you can use. But you should consider having other ways of firing projectiles. Like what? A bow and arrow would be one thing. You may need to hunt for yourself, and a slingshot isn't all that useful for getting big game. You should also consider having guns just to be on the safe side in case you need to fire multiple times and you don't have the time to reload. Usopp was hanging on to every word. You should also consider getting traps you can be able to throw out with your hand. Being able to disrupt your enemy's movement can mean life or death. You always want to have tricks up your sleeve. There were stars in Usopp's eyes. Thank you, sir. My name's Garp. And think nothing of it. If you want to become a warrior, always aim for the top, and to do that you need to have as many tools as possible at your disposal. Excuse me, sir? Looking back they saw a man in a suit. Can I help you? Mary said you wanted to talk to me. An appointment canceled, so I figured I might as well. Oh, I need my ship painted and some new sails. It's on the shore near Usopp's house. Garp really hoped he didn't ask questions. I can get the money to pay for my ship after I'm done looking after the kid. It's quite all right. We'll start work on it right away and you can pay us later. The man reacted weirdly upon seeing Garp's face. Thank you. What color would you like the ship and sails to be? Garp thought for a moment. Black. The man walked away and Garp returned to talking to Usopp. Mostly he helped him better his skills with a slingshot. Soon enough the doctor returned. Sir, the cure is working. Banshina will need a few more treatments, but we are out of danger. Usopp started crying, now knowing his mother would survive. Garp looked down at the child and sighed. Usopp, how much money do you need to get a letter to your old man? Usopp told him, and Garp took out what money he had on his person and gave it to the boy. Tell your father everything. Let him know his family needs him. Walking to his ship, Garp let out a laugh. Saul did always say he had a soft heart. By the sea did he miss that giant. As his boat came into view he was shocked to find it complete. Mary said you didn't have time to wait, so I got some extra help. Turning around he was met with the master of the mansion. How much do I owe you? None. Consider this repaying a debt. We've never met. That may be, but you saved a cousin of mine. I can't overlook that. Thank you, Monkey D. Garp. The man bowed to him. Garp's eyes widened. Please don't bow to me. I did what anyone would have done. No matter. Have a safe journey. He walked away and Garp was stuck wondering if this would become a trend. He didn't want to abuse the kindness of others. Pushing the ship out and jumping aboard, Garp charted a course for Logue Town. He'd need some supplies before heading for the Grand Line, and what he was looking for could unfortunately only be found there. Hopefully the winds will grant me enough time to read the book. With Sengoku. As those who had gathered for the meeting filed out, Sengoku stared at the agreed amount for Garp's first bounty. 10,526,378,900 belly. The highest bounty ever and almost twice as much as Roger's. This would undoubtedly cause chaos and he didn't know how well it would go for them. Fleet Admiral? Looking up, Akiji stood before him. What is it? I would like to take a temporary leave. A few days at most. What for? To get drunk. Garp was my mentor and friend. I'd like to drink to him before everything starts happening. I'll be out of the Grand Line so you don't have to worry about my reputation taking a hit. Where will you be going? Logetown. I'll be taking Bogard with me to keep me in check. He doesn't like alcohol. That's Garp's former right hand. Akiji sighed. Yeah, he wants to get away from everything for a bit as he comes to terms with all this. Sengoku let out a sigh. You both are granted leave. Have a drink for me as well, he was my friend too. Garp stood on the deck, Logetown a good hour or two away. He hadn't had a chance to read the book due to a storm hitting. He had considered if he should make landfall somewhere just so he could actually read and set out a plan. But alas, that wouldn't work with his limited resources. Letting out a sigh, Garp hoped the visit would be nice. While the basics like medical books and food would be gathered, he also planned to get some new clothes. Continuing to wear the same uniform no matter how many times he washed it just felt wrong. He wasn't a Marine anymore, so why dress like one? Gotta say, I'm impressed with what you've done already. Garp whirled around and saw the embodiment of Luffy's wish leaning against the railing of the ship, smirking at him. You have really blown through our expectations. What do you mean? I followed the instructions, I saved Rosinante's life, sent Luffy to Dayton, and saved that girl Kuina. What did I do to cause such a reaction? Except you went beyond the instructions. Yes, you saved Rosinante's life, but you also took him in law to a safe haven where they could build actual meaningful connections and make friends, maybe even family there. You saved his life when you killed Virgo, but you went beyond that. With Kuina you stopped her death, sure, but you also set her on a path to master her fear. You didn't have to comfort her, you could have simply walked along after putting her down, but you didn't. When sending Luffy up to Dayton, you didn't need to call her just so she would know, and you definitely didn't need to tell Ace the true story about his father, but you did anyway. Hell, you even did things we didn't expect you to do. You inspired Usopp into becoming an even greater warrior than he already would become in the future and saved the life of his mother as well. You saved Sabo from losing his memories and then killed his sperm donor and a celestial dragon. I would do them again in a heartbeat. The embodiment of Luffy's wish let out a laugh. It was like listening to 1,000 stars sing at once. See, I knew I made the right choice. I could have gone for Shanks or Luffy or anyone else that might have agreed to do this, but you? You go out of your way to help people and do it to an incredible extent without expecting anything in return. The ocean is singing you praises and death is laughing their ass off at finally seeing one of those celestial dragons get what's coming to them. Which is why we figured we might as well add 1 or 2 extra things to the book. What do you mean extra things? Garp tilted his head. There's this place in the north called Germa, ever heard of it? Only when Sengoku was cursing out its king, Garp remembered those times fondly, one of the few times when Sengoku lost his temper, and it wasn't because of him or Dragon. Well, we decided it would be best if he was dead and his remaining children get a chance at a childhood. Remaining? That word held Garp's attention. One of them was disowned and cast out to sea. He was too kind apparently. However, that's not the main thing here. I know you'll do these things without asking for rewards. I'm protecting my family, knowing they get to live is reward enough. Garp would lay down his life 1,000 times for them. Yes, I already know that. So I'm still going to reward you, I just won't tell you when or what it is. The others agree in that regard at least. You're doing things that are already changing the world, and we all know that once you get rolling it's going to pick up to the extreme. The wish shot something at the midnight black book and it glowed for a moment before it returned to its natural color. Garp wanted to protest. He didn't deserve any rewards. He was simply doing what was right for his family. But this being was an actual god, not whatever the celestial dragons considered themselves. He didn't seem to have an actual choice in if he wanted them or not. Should I expect to meet the others at some point? The wish smirked. Yup. You've really endeared yourself to them. Besides, like I said, your grandson is favored by many even now. See you later. The wish disappeared in a blinding light, and then Garp was once again alone on the ship. Just what did you do, Luffy, to get gods to favor you? Garp felt like it would take 3 decades to properly explain everything that Luffy did to become Pirate King. You are gonna be spectacular, I always knew that. He went below deck to grab a poncho so he could disguise himself. With it being so close to the Grand Line, Logetown was known for having rare but fierce storms that most weren't able to predict when they would happen, so no one would question a man in a rain poncho. Moving the ship into port, Garp put the ramp down and walked down it, doing what he can to not draw attention to himself. He didn't know when his bounty would be made public, but it would be soon, he just knew it. Walking along, he looked through the stores. He'd grab everything after he paid for a bite to eat and a drink. Taking a few turns, he came to the Gold Roger bar. Walking in, he was met with the owner, Raoul, cleaning a glass. It was early in the morning, so no one was in yet. Taking a seat, Garp threw down some belly. "A meal and drink, please." Looking up, Raoul recognized one of his few repeating customers. Coming right up. He went into the back and Garp was left alone. Looking at the old bounties up on the wall, he recognized many pirates that he had fought. Most were scum, but some of them had been good people. He had to think if perhaps he had let them continue their career, maybe Luffy wouldn't have lost his smile in the future. Maybe if he had just stopped believing in the Marines sooner. Maybe if he joined his son in the revolutionaries. Maybe if he stopped Fisher Tiger's death. Maybe if he put an end to the Buster Call. Maybe if he dismantled CP9. Maybe if he got talk of the Void Century to be made legal. Maybe. He was snapped out of the spiral when Raoul placed a small sandwich and a glass of sake before Garp. "Your usual." Walking away, Garp let out a sigh. He had many regrets about the past. More had just been made when he learned what the Marines did to Luffy. Grabbing the sandwich, he took a bite as he heard someone else come into the bar. "I knew you'd show up here." Garp's eyes widened and he whirled around for the second time that day. Dropping the sandwich on the plate and getting to his feet, he was met with Kuzan, one of the many Marines he personally trained. Next to him was Bogard. "Garp, you've got a lot of explaining to do." Despite him being a traitor, Kuzan hadn't tried to attack. He didn't even have his devil fruit active. Bogard had his sword, but his hand was away from it. "You're gonna need to be really specific. I've done a lot of stuff recently and I plan to do way more soon." He couldn't help but avoid the question snarkily. He'd said the same thing to Sengoku many times in the past, so it was a habit. Kazan sighed and sat down, Bogard doing the same. "I mean, why did you quit the Marines?" "I'm just here to join up with you, Garp. I told you before, my loyalty is to you, not the Marines." Bogard put his hat down and looked at Garp with the same eyes that he had when he first enlisted. They shined brightly in the pale light, his intentions clear in them even without his words. "Where do you want me to start?" Garp grabbed the plate and glass and took a table across from them. "There are a lot of reasons. I'm willing to listen. The Buster Calls, CP9, answering to the 5 Elders, answering to the Celestial Dragons, the multiple corrupt nobles that we have to do the dirty work for. Do I even need to mention the hunting of pregnant women? Killing children because of who their parents are. The fact that slavery is still technically legal despite it being outlawed. Don't even get me started on O'Hara." Kazan flinched at the mention. "The fact that more Marines are believing in absolute justice instead of moral and kind justice. The idea that all pirates are evil. The constant lying to the public. The manipulation of the news. The manipulation of fucking maps. Literally everything with the Lunarians. Would you like me to go on?" Garp looked at them with it. "Trust me, I have more face." "So what was the reason that pushed you over the edge?" Kazan raised an eyebrow. Garp had listed so many reasons, so what was the one that pushed him over the edge? "I'm a father. My son is Monkey D. Dragon. He gave me a grandson. Portgas D. Rouge died after asking me to look after her child. The day I disappeared, I realized that if I wanted those two to be safe, I couldn't do it by trying to change the system from within. I'd have to do it outside. And if this path leads me to collapse the world government, then so be it. I will make this world safe for my grandsons if it's the last thing I do." He spoke with conviction. Kazan and Bogard looked at him, surprised. It was the truth, and he would reveal to them about the wish at some point, once he figured out how to say it without sounding crazier than usual. "Well, seems I'm quitting the Marines as well." Kazan surprised him. "Garp, after O'Hara I wanted to quit. Saul was one of the best of us and he defended those people because they simply wanted to learn. When I killed him, I wanted to run. But you still believed in fixing this mess. That things could be better. So I stayed. If you've stopped believing in it, then so have I." Garp stared at Kazan for a moment as he ate his sandwich. Taking a swig of sake, he let out a sigh. "Then you'll both need new clothes. If you're quitting the Marines, then you shouldn't wear the uniform." Garp downed the rest of his drink and stood up. "See you next time, Raoul." "Bye, Garp." Garp walked outside with his 2 new crewmates. The first stop was the clothing store. Garp decided upon a black suit and gloves. He didn't get the jacket since it would restrict his arms and didn't bother looking for a tie. Kazan got some loose pants and a shirt. Throwing a jacket on and some sunglasses, he rounded the look off with a beanie. Bogard decided upon a trench coat, but he kept the hat. Paying for the clothes, they got the rest of the supplies and returned to the ship. Where to first? Kazan looked expectantly. The North Blue. We're hunting down Germa. Taking down the best mercenaries the world government can hire will be extremely beneficial in the long run. Garp didn't share that he'd like to have a few words with Judge regarding his treatment of his children. So you went to the north before heading to the east? Kazan looked at Garp while he was working on planning a course. Since he would literally bike along the ocean, he knew it pretty well, so he was put in charge of navigation. Use submarine channels when entering and leaving. But we won't be able to this time. Garp stretched his neck as he got up from doing sit-ups. But why did you go to the north? I was leaving the Marines. I didn't want them to learn of where my grandchildren were, so I went to the north first. Ended up doing something better there. Kazan sighed. Well, to get through the Red Line we would either need to go through marine channels or sail through the entirety of Paradise, enter into the New World, and then sail through the Calm Belt. This ship unfortunately will not last that long, and we will have to contend with pirates and Marines attacking us. I was planning to go to Water 7 to commission an official ship, but we don't have enough money to pay for it. Well, we could save on some by taking some supplies. Bogart said from where he was practicing with his sword. We get some atom wood and sea stone that cuts down on the costs. Which is why I set us on a course to intercept a prisoner ship, Kazan said smugly. He'd known that Garp would want to get an official ship, and besides, sea stone can prove useful when they have to fight against devil fruit users. How do you know one will be there? Garp asked. Because Spandine is constantly visiting it. Saw him head out for it a couple times and followed him once. None of the men on that ship trusted Spandine or his little rat of a son. So we get some sea stone and some information that Cypher Pole has. Perfect. Garp grinned dangerously. What if Spandine is there though? Can we kill him? Bogart smirked. Spandine was known to constantly call Buster calls whenever he was granted the power, and since he was no longer among the Marines, he had a small kill list with Spandine near the top. It would be criminal not to. Garp chuckled. Kazan let out a laugh as the prison ship came into sight. Get ready, every Marine on there is loyal Spandine, so they are all pieces of shit. Check the records? Garp asked knowingly. Moment Kazan set his mind to something, nothing could stop him. Yup. I knew the moment I ever got the chance to go after the bastard I'd want to know how many of the people on his ships I'd need to knock out and how many to kill. So let's have some fun. All three smiled with bloodlust bleeding through. The chance to fuck over Spandine and Cypher Pole got their blood pumping. As the ship came into view they prepared. Garp would act unconscious while the two would pretend to still be in the Marines, a plan he wasn't happy with, but he was outvoted. They would come aboard and take him to the brig to figure out the prisoner situation, then they'd begin the attack. Putting some rope around Garp's arms they got ready as they waved them down. Admiral Akiji, what are you doing here? Ran into the turncoat Garp. We managed to capture him, although our uniforms were ruined, so had to get a change of clothes. Permission to come aboard so we can lock him away? We don't have any proper cuffs for him. Gulping, the Marine called out for them to connect the two ships. With the ramp connecting them, Bogart pulled Garp along it as Kazan walked behind them. You'll find the cells below deck. Do you need help handling him? No, I can handle him. He hasn't eaten in days, so he's fairly weak. Bogart continued to drag Garp below deck while Kazan got ready to begin the attack. Worst idea ever. Sir, I know you don't like this, but please shut up. We needed the element of surprise. Garp refrained from grumbling as they heard an all too familiar and very annoying voice in the cell block. This is your last opportunity, you two. Tell me what I want to know or you will die within the week. Oh good, he's here. Bogart grinned darkly. Alvia, my dear, where are the poneglyphs you found? Someone spitting could be heard. Fine then, Tom, where are the blueprints to Pluton? No answer could be heard. Fine then, enjoy your pitiful death. We know the state of the prisoners, we can drop the act. Bogart let go of Garp, who ripped his arms free of the ropes and barreled towards the incoming group of Marines. Bogart entered the cell block and stepped to the side as the guard stationed there ran out into the hallway. What the hell is going on? Spandine yelled. Within the cells was a large fishman and a white-haired woman. Nothing much, we're just getting what we need. Bogart unsheathed his sword. Who are you? Spandine backed away from him as he walked forward. No. No, please. One of the Marines tried to hold onto the wall but was dragged out of sight screaming. The last person you will ever see. Bogart cut Spandine in half. His eyes crossed before they rolled while the two halves moved apart. Now who the hell are you two? He could see some ice growing on the ceiling, so Kazan had heard the message. Tom? Garp walked into the room, bloodied but with a wide smile. Garp? The fishman got to his feet but stumbled a bit. He steadied himself on the bars of the cell and looked at the former Marine in surprise. The hell are you doing here? You know him? Bogard looked at Garp. Of course I do, he made my ship. Heard you died. A lie they cooked up for both of us. We have information they want. The woman said. Yeah, something about poneglyphs and Pluton. Bogard, go help Kazan handle the rest. Bogard nodded and ran off. Hey Tom, think you could build a ship for me? Did you lose the one I made for you? Garp started digging through the desk nearby for the keys. No, I quit. Forget this. Garp walked over and ripped the sea stone door off of Alvia's cell, then did the same to Tom's. No, I quit the Marines. Tom raised an eyebrow while Alvia got up. Their hair had both grown incredibly long and they were very thin from lack of food. Really? And why are you attacking this ship? We figured if we bought some of the supplies we could get a discount on the cost. Tom let out a laugh at Garp's bluntness. Although this worked in our favor. Although Garp had to wonder. Was this one of those rewards the Wish had said he would get? You accepting people on your crew? Alvia spoke up. I have a bone to pick with the world government. Yup. We have an initial stop to make in Germa, then we are going to start working on some things in the Grand Line. If you want to join us, you're more than welcome. Garp smiled at the two of them. It would have been friendlier if he didn't have blood drying on him. Garp, what's taking you so long? Kazan walked in. Found a shipwright, Garp pointed at Tom, and I don't know what she does but she wants to join us. He then pointed at Alvia. I'm Alvia, I'm a historian. I was at O'Hara. Kazan flinched. So there was another survivor. Were you shot? Garp pointed at a scar on her chest. By that bastard your friend split in half. I should have died but I didn't and he decided to take me hostage and get the locations of the poneglyphs that I found so they could be destroyed. I awoke to my family dead because of him. Alvia spit on Spandine's remains. His son wanted the blueprints to Pluton and I refused. He faked my death and sent me here. Tom stretched. He'd lost most of the weight from when Garp last saw him. Those boys, I can't put them at risk by going back to them, so if you'll have me I'll be your cruise shipwright. Garp really wondered if the gods were responsible for them finding these two. But he wasn't going to look this good fortune in the mouth. A shipwright was always good to have for a crew and a historian was a well of knowledge that could give them useful information about places. Well then it seems we're taking this ship then. Ours is too small for him. Kazan gestured at Tom. Bogard and I will move the supplies and everything over here. Put the survivors on the boat and take the sails as well. What survivors? Kazan walked away. Well, let's get some proper food in you. Garp walked towards the kitchen. Alvia and Tom looked at each other before shrugging. They followed after the ex-vice admiral. Bogard walked in soon after and started dragging Spandine's remains out to throw overboard. Well, this at least solves the issue of getting to the north. We can pretend to be a marine ship and take the channels. He watched as the remains drifted away and felt right once more serving next to Garp. Garp handed Alvia her third bowl of stew. Being free for 3 days, both she and Tom have been ravenous. While Garp is no great chef, he does know how to make a good stew, one of the few things he can make by himself. Don't force yourself to eat too much. I know the feeling, but doing that will only make you both sick. Garp could never turn his back on someone starving. He'd never wish that feeling on anyone, not even his worst enemy. Although he had a feeling once he got a chance to read the book that may change. Whatever. So why are you going for Germa? Alvia said around a mouthful of food. Its ruler. I'm going to kill him. Garp grabbed the dirty dishes and took them to the kitchen to clean. Tom raised an eyebrow. Why? He's an infamous bounty hunter and mercenary. Killing him can take the heat off of us from bounty hunters at the very least. But the work he's done for the world government, all of its stuff they'd prefer to keep secret, is the main reason. Killing him and anyone loyal to him of their own free will, that'll take away a powerful weapon of theirs. Garp gripped his fist tightly before returning to cleaning the dishes. You think they'll have a shipyard there for me to work in? Tom asked. He needed a proper workshop if he was going to build Garp a new ship. They should. I don't know much about their kingdom, but when they send out their mercenaries it's always in boats. Probably to feign ignorance if they're arrested so they don't lose their position in the world government. But their finances have never shown them buying boats. How the hell would you know that? Alvia finished her stew. Sengoku, the fleet admiral, at one point wanted to see if there was any way to be able to either arrest the king or remove the kingdom from the world government. Searched through countless things, but they are pretty good at covering their tracks. They buy everything they'd need to make a boat, which is why I know they'll have a shipyard. Garp remembered helping Sengoku dig through all those files. It had taken them days only to end up with nothing. Alvia whistled as she drank some water. Couldn't it work better to get them removed from the world government? Tom nodded in agreement as he finished his stew. He'd still be a potential problem. Plus, it would have to be something brazenly public that the world government absolutely couldn't ignore or sweep under the rug. Yes, they've done that before. Something like, I don't know, trying to form an alliance with one of the emperors. Then it would be a different story. But unless something like that happened, they ain't getting kicked out. Garp washed his hands of any soap and then started drying them off. Besides, 3 of us are wanted by the world government while Kazan and Bogart have gone rogue and will most likely have their own bounties soon. Which reminds me, I need to ask Kazan if he knows what my bounty is. Garp hung the towel up as he walked out of the mess hall. Alvia listened until he was gone before turning to Tom. Okay, I still don't know about Kazan, but I think we can trust Garp at least. Tom sighed. Yeah. Bogart, I met once or twice before being imprisoned, and Kazan I only heard of from the newspapers and when Spandine mentioned he was the one to kill Saul. Garp though, while he was waiting for his ship to be built, he arrested a bunch of the gangs at Water 7. Hell, he stopped some pirate attacks too. He never asked for anything in return, just said he was waiting for his ship to be built and figured he'd help around while he did. Before he left, he helped solidify a marine presence there, and I mean the good kind of marines. I never would have had the chance to meet Iceberg or Frankie if it weren't for what he did while waiting for his ship to be built. So if he trusts Bogart and Kazan, then I'll trust them so long as he does. Alvia and Tom had grown close during their shared time in captivity. They shared stories, laughed, comforted each other, and helped the other when Spandine decided to go the torture route. Tom trusts Alvia and she trusted him. So if Tom will trust Kazan and Bogart so long as Garp trusted them? Alright then, I'll follow your lead here. But if this goes south, we bolt? Tom nodded. Up on deck, Kazan was poring over a map of the North Blue. Getting there had been easy thanks to the ship since they could glide through marine channels without question. But now he had to figure out where Germa was. It wasn't on the map despite it being part of the world government, and he'd only ever heard rumors. Swear to the stars, when I find whoever was in charge of putting Germa on the map, I will make a statue out of them. Having trouble? Looking up, Kazan saw Bogart with 2 cups of coffee. Figured you'd like something to keep you awake while you chart us a course. Thanks. Accepting the cup, Kazan took a sip before looking back at the map. I just can't figure it out. None of the maps we have show where Germa is, not even the general area. I looked through the navigation books and came up with nothing again. There has to be some reason why I can't find anything on its location. If I just knew it, maybe I could find it. He let out a sigh and downed a third of his coffee. Maybe a historian can help? Alvia walked towards them, her hair having been cut and then done up in a ponytail swaying in the wind. You guys said you're looking for Germa, right? Yeah, and nothing from the maps to the navigation books is helping. Kazan looked at Alvia. He remembered O'Hara like it had happened yesterday. The screams, the smoke, children calling for their parents before being silenced, Saul saving Robin. Every single last detail. Alvia tapped her chin. I didn't find much back then, but what I do know is a nickname of the kingdom. Kazan looked at her, showing the briefest hint of excitement. The nickname of the place could give him clues on how to find it. A nation without land. Revealing that, Alvia shrugged her shoulders. That was used to describe its capital mostly. The kingdom used to rule all of the North Blue before it was dissolved to almost nothing. Kazan tapped his finger on the table. A nation without land. Repeating the phrase a few more times as he looked at the map with narrowed eyes before suddenly it came to him. Downing the rest of the coffee, Kazan picked up his pen and began to draw a line around the North Blue. That's it. Bogart looked at what Kazan was doing. That doesn't seem like a location we can sail to. Because Germa isn't stuck in a singular location. It's a ship, a moving kingdom. That's why they aren't on the map or in the navigation charts and books. Because their location is constantly changing. Kazan smirked as he finished. But, if their size is of an average kingdom, and I'm assuming it is given the number of people we know they have, that limits where they can sail in the North Blue. We'll just need to sail along this and we'll find them in no time. While they may be larger, they would move considerably slower than our smaller ship. It should take a couple of days, maybe half a month at most. Found it? Garp came out, coming back from a brief workout. Kazan smirked at Garp. I did. Vin Smoke Judge will be ours before the month is out. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Support the writer. Don't forget to like, sub, share, and donate for more videos.